Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 5.5. Here's your objective. I'll be able to compare and order rational numbers. Now I know a few lessons ago we compared integers, which are numbers that are just whole numbers, positive or negative, but now we are going to compare rational numbers. If you forgot what a rational number is, rational numbers are any numbers that can be represented as a fraction. So all integers are rational as well. For instance, this 3 over 5 is a rational number, but so is the number 8. That's a rational number as well, and an integer, because 8 can represent it as 8 over 1 as its fraction. So what are irrational numbers? Well, pi is an example of an irrational number because pi is never ending. The fraction never stops. It can't be represented as a fraction. Okay. So let's take a look at the first example from your books. This is actually in your notes from your book. Fill in the circle with less than, greater than, or equal to make the statement true. We have negative 1 and 2 tenths is, let's compare it to 8 tenths. All right, so what I would do is actually in my head, I know that this is negative already, so I know a negative number is going to be less than a positive number. So I could pretty much tell you, there you go, right now the smaller number eats the bigger number. But you might want to put a number line in your head. And if there's 0, and I have 8 tenths or 0.8 all the way to the right, negative 1 and 2 tenths or 1.2 all the way to the left, the further left you go on the number line, the smaller you are. So, since negative 1.2 is to the left of 0.8, negative 1.2 is less than 8 tenths. All right, so further left you go, the smaller you are. Here's another example, but I have a number line this time. This is also in your book. I have a number line going vertically. So the higher you go on a number line that goes vertical, the higher number you are. The lower you go, the lower number you are. Makes sense, right? So I have negative 1 and 4 tenths, comparing it with negative 1 and a quarter there, 1.25. Graph the decimals on a number line to help you. Well, they already did that for me. Here is negative 1 and 25 hundredths right there. It's higher than negative 1 and 4 tenths, which is down here. But if you think about it, the further negative you go, for instance, negative 800 is going to be less than negative 1. Okay, but negative 800 seems like a big number because it's got more digits and whatnot. But negative 1 is, if you have an imaginary number line in your head, negative 1 is further to the right. It's closer to 0. Negative 800 is so far to the left of 0. All right, so you just got to keep those things in your mind there. Just because there's a lot of digits doesn't mean it's greater. If it's negative, the more digits and the higher the number is negatively, it's going to be lower. Sounds kind of weird, but it's true. All right, so now what if we have to compare fractions? Well, you have a couple of options here. Negative 3/8 compared to negative 5/16. One option I could do is I could turn them from last lesson, I could turn them both into decimals. So I would do 3 divided by 8 and 5 divided by 16, and I could see what my decimal is for each of those. But they're both negative, so the higher decimal it is would be lower because they're both negative, would be less than. But I could see that 8 and 16 are going to have a common factor there. So I could change this 3/8 to match the 16th down there. So how many times can 8 go into 16 and go twice? So I'm going to rewrite this down here. All right, and I'm going to rewrite this one as well. I'm going to leave that as negative 5/16. And 8 can go into 16 2 times. So I'm going to make that a 16 as well. And 3 times 2 equals 6. So I have negative 6/16 or negative 5/16. Which one of those is greater? Well, negative 6/16 is going to be a higher number, but it's negative. So negative 3/8 is going to be less than negative 5/16. I know it looks weird down there with the higher number on top, but remember these are negative. Now if I were to change these signs to positive, for whatever reason I shouldn't be doing that right now, then this sign would change. 6/16 would be greater than 5/16. But since these are negative, negative 6/16 is less than negative 5/16. All right, now you see an example where 1 is a decimal and 1 is a fraction. You have a couple options. You could turn that into a fraction, but I don't think it'll work out too well. So I like to make everything a decimal, as you heard me say before. So I'm going to turn this into a decimal and then compare it. I'm going to forget about my negative signs for now. All right, so this is 8/15, which is 8 divided by 15. So I take my 8 and I divide it by 15, keeping in mind that it is negative, but I'll deal with that later. Well, 15 can't go into 8, but 15 could certainly go into 80. How many times? 15, 30, 45, 60, 75 would be 5 times. 5 times 15 is 75. Got to remember to bring my decimal point up there as well. And 80 minus 75 equals 5. So far I have 5 tenths and 5 tenths in my tenths column, and so I have to keep going. All right, 15 cannot go into 5, so I have to annex another 0. How many times could 15 go into 50? 15, 30, 45. You can go in 3 times. Now, I could stop right there, and I'm going to stop right there, because I could see that my numbers are now different. So this is going to be negative 53 hundredths. Okay, there's going to probably be more after that, definitely going to be more after that, but I'm going to stop. And I rewrite this number as negative 51 hundredths. Now I can compare them. Well, which one is closer to, since they're negative, which one, excuse me, is closer to 0? Well, negative 51 hundredths is closer to 0, because if I kept counting down, it would be negative 50 hundredths, negative 49 hundredths. Negative 53 hundredths is further away from 0 on the negative side, so that would be further left on my number line. Since that's further left on my number line, that is smaller number. So, negative 51 hundredths is greater than negative 53 hundredths. Okay? One last example of something we have to do, because you'll see this in your work. Sometimes you have to order and compare more than 2 numbers, more than 2 rational numbers. We have to order these from least to greatest. So I have to rewrite all of these. I like to keep them all in decimal, so this one is fine. It's going to say negative 2 and 46 hundredths. Now this number, let's see, I could do our Hartwell method, and I could divide 22 by 25, but I know that 25 goes in 100 nicely. 25 goes in 100 4 times. If you don't believe me, let's watch. 25, 50, 75, 100. So I'm going to write this as negative 2. And now, how many times does 25 go in 100? 4 times, we just said. So what's 22 times 4? 22, 44, 66, 88. So it's going to be negative 2 and 88 hundredths. All right, because I changed that to hundredths. Whenever I do the bottom, I do the top. And my last number is going to be written as, so I could do the Hartwell method again. I could do 1 divided by 10. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn it into a decimal, because I know that 10 goes into 100 10 times. So whatever I do the bottom, I do the top. What's 1 times 10? It is 10. So I have negative 2 and 1 tenth. I don't really need that 0 there, but I'll keep it anyways. Now I could order it. Okay, which one is least? Which one is the furthest away left on my imaginary number line from 0? And negative 2 and 88 hundredths would be furthest left. So this number right here will be my least number, negative 2 and 22 over 25. Now I have to rewrite it in its original form. Okay? I'm done with that one, so I can forget about it for now. Comma, because I'm ordering them. Which one is now is further away from 0 to the left? Negative 2 and 46 hundredths is definitely further left than negative 2 and 1 tenth. So since that's my original number, I just have to write it the same way. And that means that the one that's closest to 0, the highest number, the one that's closest to the right, furthest right, is going to be negative 2 and 1 tenth. Oh, but I have to rewrite it just like in the fraction form how it came. So this right here is my answer from least to greatest. Negative 2 and 22 over 25, negative 2.46, and negative 2 and 1/10. All right, you guys have some work for me to do. Let me erase this nonsense, get it out of your way. 3 problems, not too bad. If you watch this video, it should be pretty easy. If you need to rewatch, watch it again, but you're going to compare negative 9 and 7/10 to negative 10 and 3/10. Now, I'll give you a clue, just in case you forgot. Just because this is a bigger number per se, if you take away the negatives, yes, it is a bigger number. It sounds like it's bigger, but since it's further away from 0, you have to have this number line in your head, a mental number line. If this is 0, you know negative 10 will be somewhere out there, and negative 9 will be closer to 0. All right, the further right you go, the larger you are. The further left you go, the smaller you are. So I'm sort of giving you the answer for number 1. Then number 2, 5/8 compared to negative 3/8. And then you have to compare all these numbers from least to greatest on the bottom. There's 4 of them. All right? Some are negative and some are positive. Keep that in mind because you might say to yourself, Mr. Murphy, those 2 numbers are kind of the same. Well, they're not. One's negative, one's positive. All right, good luck, and I'll see you soon.